Okay, welcome back to linear functions and linear inequalities. It's been a little bit of time since the last video. My apologies. I don't have any excuses for that. I've just been lazy. But we can get back into this because the SAT is probably quite a ways away, hopefully, by the time you start. Today we'll just be doing linear functions again because it's a pretty big portion, I would say, of the math portion of the SAT. You'll need to know like how to interpret word problems, the linear functions just by itself, and more. And I'll try to fit linear inequalities here as well because they're pretty similar, just with a greater than or less than sign instead of an equal sign. We will practice interpreting some of these questions because there's a very big variety of how these type of questions come about, and hopefully you'll see some benefit to it. We'll be taking it from the, I believe, level 3 questions, so hopefully this is some of the hardest questions you'll see. And if you need more practice, I do have another video on this where I briefly covered it. If you want more, let me know. If not, I'm just going to go to the next topic after this. Anyways, we'll start. So we have the function f and g are defined as f of x equals 1/4 x minus 9 and g of x equals 3/4 x plus 21. And then they want h of x and the x-coordinate of the x-intercept. So if I didn't cover this last time, or if you don't know, the x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis, right? Which is at y equals 0. And for the x or the y-intercept, it's x equals 0 because it's anywhere on this x equals 0 line, right? Because x is always going to equal 0 here, y is always going to equal 0 there. So if they're asking for the x-coordinate of this, we first need to find h of x, which we can write as the quantity of 1/4 x minus 9 plus 3/4 x plus 21. And keep in mind that this is a positive, so we're going to have to take this into account, or we always do. We'll always have to take this into account when distributing to this. For example, if this was a negative, you would actually do minus 21 because it'd be negative plus 21, so minus 21. But we'll get started with this. So you have 1/4 x plus 3/4 x, so that's x, and then we have negative 9 plus positive 21. Negative 9 plus positive 21 is just 12. So we know h of x has to equal x plus 12. But we know to find the x-intercept, we need a y equals 0. And this is essentially your y, right? It's your function. So you have, sorry, not y, 0 is equal to x plus 12. So at y equals 0, x is going to equal negative 12. Which means this is your x-coordinate for your x-intercept, negative 12. So that'll be your answer for this one. We'll move on to the next one, which is the function f gives the temperature of this. If the temperature increased by 2.10 kelvins, how much did the temperature increase? So, as previously said in the other video, y equals mx plus b is going to be something very important that you need to know, where m is the slope, b is the y-intercept, and then you have your x and y. Slope is just rise over run, right? Which is your increase or decrease amount. And this is your flat amount. So if they're asking for increase, they only want to know this number because this number doesn't change, right? If you're changing x, this never changes. So let's say you have this equation, right? The only thing you need to pay attention to when it says by how much did the temperature increase is this right here. Everything else is just a flat number. It does not change how much it increases because this is going to stay static. So if you're ever not given a calculator, or you want to do this quickly, all you actually have to do here is, since it increases by 2.10 kelvins, you just plug in 2.10 And then again, this doesn't matter and this doesn't matter. Because if you did the long way where you did final minus initial, right? This is going to stay the same. You're just going to subtract them from each other, and it's just going to equal 0 anyways. So all you have to do is 9.5 times 2.10, and for this question, you don't even need to solve that out, because these three just don't even make sense for whatever this could be. This would be around 4, because it's around 2 times 2. A little bit less than 2 times 2, so it'd be A. Okay, we'll go on to the next one. For the function f, we have f of 3x is equal to x minus 6. But we also know for the function f, we want 6. But we're not going to plug in 6, because 6 is an x. 6 is equal to 3x. If 6 is equal to 3x, we have x equals 2. And then you have 2 minus 6, which is negative 4. So it'd be B. And then for the last linear equation we'll do before we get into linear equalities, we have h is equal to 9 v minus 273.15 over 5 plus 32, where h is Fahrenheit and v is kelvins. They give you the temperature in Fahrenheit and they want Kelvin. So how do you get h by itself? You want to get rid of this, this, and this, and this. So first thing, we'll take away 32, so we have h minus 32 is equal to 9 v minus 273.15 over 5, and you can actually get rid of 9/5 by dividing each side by 9/5 or multiplying by 5/9, like this. And then to get rid of the 273.15, the minus 273.15, you'll just add 273.15 to both sides. And then you will get v by itself. And then you just plug in your h's, 467.33, right? So once you have 5/9 times 467.33 minus 32 plus this, you should be left with v equals 515. So this is just a matter of getting v by itself. And if there's no more questions for that, I'll go briefly into inequalities right here. So for inequalities, right, you have, let's say instead of y equals mx plus b, you're going to have something instead that's y is greater than or less than mx plus b. And if you have something like this, right, the line can be dotted or straight, colored in, depending on if this is less than or equal to, or less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. This will have the equal to. This is just less than or greater than. And then if it's greater than, right, if it's greater than, you'll go up, which makes sense, right? If it's less than, you'll go down. And I'll rewrite it here. Closed line. And this is open. And sometimes you'll even see it on a graph or a line where they say like, oh, let's say this is 0, this is -2, let's say this is 2. Maybe they'll do something like, oh, if you want it greater than, or y is greater than -1, it would be an open dot, right? And since it's greater than, you're going to the right. If it's less than, you're going this way. If it's equal to, you close dot and do the same thing. You just have to solve for y in this case, or x, depending on what they give you or what they're asking for. But given that information, we'll go into some practice problems. Just give me a sec and we'll get through them. Welcome back to the inequalities. Hopefully this won't make the video too long. We have a couple questions to go over since this is relatively new. These will be the more difficult ones, so hopefully I can just go to a different subject almost entirely instead of having to go back to this. But an elementary school teacher is ordering X workbooks and Y sets of a flashcard. and the teacher must order at least 20 items. So that's the first part, at least 20 items. But the total cost must not be over 80. And then it says, if the workbook costs $3 each and the flashcards cost $4 per set, which of the following models the situation? So you know that they have X workbooks and Y sets. And together, those must have at least 20 items. At least, right? This means at least right here. So, based off of this, you can already eliminate these two because they show this is less than or equal to, and then this is greater or equal to 80, which doesn't make sense. And then here, for the second part, you have the workbooks, right? X cost $3 each, and the flashcards cost $4 each. And this cannot be over 80. It can't be over, but it can be 80, right? Which means it's less than or equal to. So which one here has both of these? It would be A. Pretty straightforward. Let's get into the next one. Yeah, I know I might be losing some of you guys here because attention spans and whatnot. But hold on, we only have a few more. Alright, this won't take too much time. Number X is at most 2 less than 3 times the value of Y, and the value of Y is -4. So you know this, and then you have X is at most 2 less than 3 times the value. So that means X is at most, right? Because this is pretty much, it has to be less than or equal to, because it's at most 2 less than 3 times the value of Y. 3 times the value of Y, 2 less than that. Hopefully that makes sense. And then you know that Y equals -4, so this is actually going to turn into -12 minus 2. So X has to be less than or equal to -14, which means the greatest possible value for X is -14, right? Because it can be -14, -15. This would look something like this, where let's say this is -14, close dot to the left. -14 is the highest value it can be. Okay, and now we're going to get into some more tricky ones. Let me know if you have any questions with whatever we're doing or what we're going to do. I am fitting the last two on the same page because I am too lazy to keep going back and forth between pages to get them. So the triangle inequality states that any 2 sides of a triangle must be greater than the length of the third side. If a triangle has side lengths 6 and 12, which inequality represents the last side, where X is the third side? So there's actually 2 ways you can think of this. You can think of 12 as the biggest side or the second to biggest side. So, for example, we'll just write this out. Just hold on. We'll have the side lengths of 6 and 12 have to be greater than X, right? Which is the third side. So you could say that 18 is greater than X, which is the same thing as X is less than 18, right? So this looks good. This doesn't, and this doesn't. But hold on, we also need to check for what happens if 12 is actually the biggest side. Because it can't only be less than 18. What if I told you, for example, the last length was 2? You have 2, 6, and 12. Well, 2 plus 6 is not greater than 12. So that doesn't work. We also have to check if 6 plus X is greater than 12. Because if this is less than 12, we have to make sure that the first and second side have to be bigger than the third side, in at least in terms of like first, second, and third as in least to greatest. So if we have this, we also have X is greater than 8. So if we know X is greater than 6, sorry, I don't know why I said 8 earlier. X is greater than 6 and X is less than 18. So if you put this together, you actually have this for C. Some people, when they see these type of problems, might stop at A once they get an answer. But for any inequality question, or really any question that you have, you should realistically have enough time to check your answers. And if you see 2 answers that look very similar, very likely they're trying to trick you in some way, or it's good to always like double check if you miss something For example, I think this question could get a lot of people mixed up, or, with a mistake, even if you know the question, like how to do it. Okay, and for our last question, this will be pretty quick. So we have, which of the following satisfies the systems of inequalities? So you could do the old-fashioned thing and like draw this out. Highly unnecessary. If you had two things, by the way, like inequalities, it's wherever they overlap. Like let's say this one's greater than and this one's less than. This right here would be any solution because that's where they overlap. But you don't actually need to do this for this one because you have 2x and 2x, right? So if you know y is greater than 2x minus 1 and 2x has to be greater than 5, you can actually plug this back in here. So you have y is greater than 5 minus 1, or y is greater than 4, which is b. And this works, by the way, because these are both the same sign. But if that makes sense, that's the end of all the questions that I had for you guys today. If anyone wants extra practice, I can always make a second video with more practice. Again, questions, put in the comments wherever. I think that covers all the questions we have today. I'll see you all, hopefully, in less than 2 weeks. Take care and make sure to practice on your own time because consistency, unlike what I'm doing right now, is very important for the SAT. And good luck.